I suppose that we should address the audience in English, as some of them may be coming from other countries. So my name is Alexander Ivanovic. I'm a PhD student at Graz University of Technology. I'm doing a PhD that deals with geothermal energy and its contribution to architecture and urban planning, actually. So I come from the Department of Urbanism at TU Graz, and why choosing this topic? At the first glance, it's not very common for architectural engineers like I am to deal with geothermal energy and with all of the things, all the technical things that you guys seem to know a lot more about. But it's actually, I think that many cities in the world lack good initiatives for integrating geothermal energy into the systems of urban planning. So one of the things where I started my examination at my PhD was actually Austria. And they have a couple of cities there that involve geothermal energy with very high temperatures, and which they use at the north of the country in 2 or 3 cities so far, in Braunau, Simbach, and Altheim. But it's actually, the way it's being done there is that they take the geothermal energy at great depths, around 2 kilometers in depth, and then they have the fluid temperature of around 98 degrees and or 89 degrees, so they take that into the system. So not much of a big deal, they just do that, and so the community thrives afterwards because they have cheap energy and they can repay the investment. The good thing is that in northern Austria and in southern Germany, in Bavaria, they have mutual EU projects which allow them to have some kind of a grant or some kind of a backup financial aid, so that they can actually, if the drilling was not as successful as they had suggested it to be, so that the state would give back the funds for the drillings of the geothermal, which was great. So anyway, that was all nice and well. So then I went to Iceland, and in Iceland, the similar story. So they have, the city of Reykjavik has almost 98% of the whole heating made with geothermal energy. And then I focused. Then I thought that maybe a more profound focus would be with the cities and countries which lack geothermal potentials, the way that, for example, Austria and Iceland have. So one of the cities that was very interesting, actually I went to the United States during 2016, where I was at Cornell University, and where I had I was part of a project for sustainable communities. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to, so this is actually in this part of the country. So it's New York State, where Cornell is, and where the city of Utica is, which is the topic of my case study examination. So what they did is that they were trying to bring new technology into a city which saw its decline in the 20th century, like many other cities in the United States, which once were very at the top level of expansion and urban development, like Utica. Utica had like 100,000 people before the Second World War. Then afterwards, there was a decline in population, so the population went down to 60,000 people. And of course, with that came a lot of unemployment, not enough tax money, and a lot of problems for the population to actually live there, to stay there. So what they were trying to do at Cornell, within the program of Rust to Green, which I was part of, is to try to bring as much as possible renewable energies, landscape architecture, urban planning strategies into urban renewal process of the city of Utica. So the cities in the United States are actually very rich in history. Like I said here, they're characterized by urban sprawl and strict developments. One important thing for an urban planner and an architect is that we don't see it much here in Europe, but in the United States, it can be, you know, like it's very common. It's a very common thing. So they have a lot of strict developments, which are actually streets that are leading to shopping malls, and within those shopping malls, mall streets, they have some kind of developments for, I don't know, that's probably for a lot of things, but mostly commercial and some kind of industrial, also some kind of housing is there, and the city is growing. So sprawl actually means the city is growing, so it's there isn't so much focus on density. So, for example, these cities have downtowns which are very nice, and they have old buildings, but they are growing. So nobody wants to live inside of a city center anymore. So that's not a common thing in Europe, because here we have the opposite. Everybody wants to live in the city center and to be near as much as possible to the things that are here present. So what we were trying to do in this project is to see what kind of geothermal energy potentials are there, and if there are some of those, what can you make it out for urban planning. So on the left, here is the some kind of historical reference to the Erie Canal. So it went all the way from New York here, New York City, then following the Hudson rivers, then connecting it to Mohawk River and Oneida County, and all the way to Erie Lake here, or Lake Erie here. And all of those cities, among those cities was also Utica, and they were thriving in those times at these developments. So you can see here on the right is the map of the cities, of their population densities. So this is the population per square mile. And as you can see here, this circle here represents Utica. It's a city that is considered to be one of the larger cities in New York State. So about architecture, it's also very important to realize one thing. In the United States, we have a lot of imported architecture. The same thing is with Iceland, but it's in the United States we have architecture that dates back to the 19th century or the 20th century, and still represents the architecture from some kind of neo-Baroque, neo-classicism, or neo-Renaissance architecture, neo-Gothic. So this is one of the buildings. It's called Stanley Theater in Utica, downtown center, and it's made in some Baroque style. So this on the right is the downtown of Utica. It's a very interesting some kind of mixture of buildings from all building eras. For example, you can see here there is a bank, National Bank of Utica, or Bank of Utica, which is right next to a building which is completely modern. So there was no strict law on urban heritage preservation. Now they're trying to address that as well. But around the Stanley Theater, this is the mostly common scenery. So we have a lot of vacant parking places, parking lots, which have not been built. They're just empty for most of the night and for some parts of the day. So we tried to make some kind of suggestion for a project there at Cornell to integrate landscape architecture and urban planning and renewable energy such as solar and geothermal. So, and for example, these are also one of the buildings. This is the Union Station, one of the last buildings made by the New York National Railway System. And to the right is the Met Brewery, one of the oldest breweries in Utica. So this is also one of the buildings that represents this post-industrial heritage. This is the sanatorium building, which once had its district heating, and nowadays it's lacking actually the central component of heating and making energy. It only testifies of the big breach that exists in the United States. Although the United States is one of the biggest, if not the largest producer of geothermal electricity. On the other hand, for heating and district heating, it's almost, it's not used at all, almost not at all, to a very small extent. So we had a project, and together with my professor Paula Horrigan at Cornell and all of my colleagues there, we made some kind of poster presentation of the project here. It was the landscape architecture mixed with urban planning. So you can see, you can also read it in the paper. And I will just show the focus very shortly because I'm lacking time. This is the map of Utica, and these spots, these red spots, are places where geothermal energy have been installed. So mostly heat pumps. So we're talking about heat pumps, but for Utica it was a very huge step. You cannot imagine a city which is almost, being its buildings have been deteriorating for a long time, and how to convince people from the city hall, the planners, the architects, to actually understand the need of geothermal energy there. So I made interviews in the city hall and with some of the architectural professors in New York State, and we had some kind of special workshop on geothermal utilization with an expert from Iceland, and all of those results you can probably read in the full paper. So the results, just shortly, said it's like that geothermal and green technologies such as solar as well are beneficial for urban revivals, and with this concept we can actually revive the whole parts of the cities which have been abandoned. One other thing is in Utica, so because the population was declining, they were trying to put as many as possible the refugees in the 90s, like from Bosnia, from Somalia, and from all of those places. So this is a kind of an intercultural environment. So the thesis is that this intercultural or multicultural environment has led actually to geothermal energy and green energy and landscape architecture being implemented within a city like Utica. So that was the big deal. And how to make that happen for other cities which are in need of similar strategies. So what is next thing? Yeah, a couple of projects, a couple of interviewees came from the brewery here on the right, and from H & H law firm, which what they actually do, they take a building which is old, like an old building like this, and then nobody lives there, it's vacant, and it's there for 20 years or for 30 years. So what they are trying to do, they would normally demolish all of those things and build a big skyscraper or all of those things. But people at Cornell and myself have been trying to persuade the city hall to actually not do that, but to actually invest in some kind of energy and refurbishment, so as to put the companies back inside of the city center, so that we can have urban planning actually back here as an opportunity for urban planning to be back in Utica, because it does not exist anymore. It's just, spreading to the boundaries where everybody wants to own a beautiful house, a lawn, and all of those things, and nobody wants to live downtown, because downtown is crime, downtown is poverty, downtown are refugees. So yeah, one of the big issues, I think, and in the future would definitely be the integration of geothermal as well. So it can help, as said, geothermal energy can help large-scale urban transformations. He can, bring up ideas of bringing back lives to the city centers, which is very important for landscape architects, for sociologists, for people who are dealing outside of this, our engineering branch. So it is also very important. There are more untapped possibilities with social sciences that we can actually imagine for implementing geothermal as well. And this is what my paper and my research showed as well to be true. So thank you for your kind attention. I wish to thank Marshall Plan from Vienna and Professor Dester for having me as a PhD student, and Professor Paul Hargan from Cornell for being there and for their kind help. And I thank you for your attention. If you have questions, we'll be happy to answer.